There have been a few internationally famed animals. Dolly the sheep, Ham the chimp, Laika the dog, Grumpy cat. But few have matched the incredible influence of one 19th century elephant, Jumbo. The story of Jumbo begins about Christmas 1860, when he was born somewhere near the border of Sudan and Ethiopia. Before he was 2, he was orphaned and bought by an Italian by the name of Casanova. He was then transported up to Dresden in Germany and then across to a zoo in Paris in France, where he was the first African elephant in Europe. The superintendent of London Zoo, a man by the name of Abraham Bartlett, was very envious because he wanted to have had the first African elephant in Europe. He offered up a swap though. In return for the elephant, he offered a rhino, a jackal, 2 eagles, 2 dingoes, a possum and a kangaroo. But he got his elephant. The assistant keeper, Matthew Scott, said though that it was a diseased and rotten creature, but he lovingly looked after the elephant and nursed it back to full health. The elephant was given a name, Jumbo, and from 1865 he was the main attraction at the zoo. He grew up into an enormous animal. This, by the way, is a model of an Indian elephant. Could somebody get me that? No. He was the main attraction at the zoo, and he would give rides. Thousands of children would go and ride on his back, including Queen Victoria's children, and it said even a young Winston Churchill. No visit to the zoo was complete without a ride on Jumbo's back. But the zoo was worried. Jumbo was prone to having terrors in the night, we now know due to toothache, and he could only be pacified if his friend Matthew Scott was with him. But Abraham Bartlett, the superintendent, realised, what if Scott wasn't around and Jumbo had one of these moments? He could destroy the whole place. Therefore, when P.T. Barnum, the famous circus owner from the United States of America, got in touch and offered to buy Jumbo for just £2,000, Bartlett immediately said yes. Of course, £2,000 back then was a lot of money. It's the equivalent of about £250,000 now. But it was a very unpopular decision. Apparently, 100,000 children wrote to Queen Victoria, begging her to stop the zoo selling Jumbo. There was even a court case trying to stop the sale, but it came to nothing. In the weeks preceding Jumbo's departure, visitors poured to the zoo, bringing gifts of cakes, buns and drinks. The visitors didn't want Jumbo to leave, and it seems Jumbo didn't want to leave either. It took 3 days to get him into his travelling crate. So on the 22nd of March 1882, Jumbo was loaded onto a carriage pulled by 10 horses, which took him to the docks, where he was loaded onto a steamship for the 18-day crossing to New York. From there he was taken to Madison Square Gardens, which was the home of P.T. Barnum's greatest show on earth. It was a wise investment. It only took 3 weeks for P.T. Barnum to recoup his money. Jumbo was billed as the largest known animal in creation. The circus toured all around the United States of America and Canada by train, Jumbo always travelling with his trusted friend Matthew Scott. But then, one day in September 1885, disaster struck. The circus had been performing in a town called St. Thomas in Ontario in Canada, when Scott was leading Jumbo back to his carriage. They were walking along the railway line and a freight train came in the other direction. The freight train just ploughed into Jumbo and he was killed. Scott lay down next to him and wept. Jumbo wasn't even fully grown. He was just 24 years old. Of course, P.T. Barnum wasn't going to let something as trivial as the animal's death stop Jumbo from performing, so he immediately went out and got him stuffed, in the process discovering some odd things in his stomach, including some pennies, some screws and even a police whistle. Jumbo continued to tour with the circus for another 3 or 4 years, in part as a stuffed animal and in part as his skeleton. In 1889, though, that all stopped. The skeleton was donated to the American Museum of Natural History in New York, and the stuffed remains were given to Tufts University. The students said it was good luck if you pulled on Jumbo's tail. That was until someone pulled a bit too hard and pulled it clean off. But that's the only part of Jumbo's hide that still remains. The rest of it was destroyed in a fire in 1975. Well, apart from the ashes that were cleaned up afterwards and kept in a peanut butter jar. But even after all that, Jumbo still lives on. No one's quite sure where his name came from. The most plausible suggestion I've heard is that it's a mixture of two Swahili words, Jambo, meaning hello, and Jumbe, meaning chief. But when we talk of him, his size is still alluded to when we use words like jumbo jet or a jumbo pack of something, or if you're from North America, a Jumbotron. Was he the largest known animal in all creation? Probably not. But he certainly had a huge influence. Right, where's my African elephant? Still nobody else here.